Hello, everybody, and welcome to Astrology. We are definitely right in the midst of the eclipse wave as I'm doing this little rundown on the Piscean partial lunar eclipse coming up on the 28th of the 8th this month. And wow, I wonder how everyone's dream life is going because my dreams have been going crazy. And I'm talking really crazy under this eclipse. This is really trippy to observe. And for those of you who don't know, well, Pisces is definitely connected to the mystical realms and the dream life, sleep life. It rules sleep. But let's just get into this eclipse because this is going to be uh, pretty, pretty mystical, and I think clearly very emotional as well. Very strong watery signature to this, extremely strong water. And I just quickly like to announce I've got my talk with Lydia Lee coming up on Chinese astrology. So we've both written books on this, and the dates are, I'm just going back and forth with email. So it's either going to be end of September or late October, but early October, but I'm going to do a live on this. So for those who are so inclined to jump on, we will probably go through some people's Chinese astrological charts who don't know much about that. And speaking of Chinese astro, we are in the Yang Fire Monkey month at the moment. So for those who keep up with those little details in Chinese astro, that's where we are at. And then I have as well a seminar I'm doing. I've got invited to speak at AstroExpos, which I will put the links below. I'm going to be talking. I've been invited to speak on Chinese astrology, so that's what I'll be talking about, and I'll be going through things like the sexagenary cycle, the 5 aspects of life, basic chart examples. I've got a few people in the public eye I'm going to talk about, and of course we're going to go through the lunar themes for the Yin Fire Goat year coming up. But I'll always do my standard live just before the Lunar New Year. So just putting that out there quickly before I kick this off. So just keep tabs on my channel, actually, by the way, for the talks. I'm starting to post a lot more things on the post section on YouTube. So for those who want to know about announcements and things like that, you'll see stuff there as well. Now, getting onto this eclipse, because this has been, wow, I mean, the last few nights, I haven't had dreams like this in a while, and it's been really, really insightful. And so if you guys are having some pretty interesting ones, don't be afraid to comment below and let me know. Because lunar eclipses, I mean, we're in between waves now. So the Earth magnetic field is extremely unstable. And, the total eclipse in Leo is like a bit of the total eclipses like hit us more like with a punch, whereas lunar eclipses will reveal something to us, and especially one in Pisces, it's going to be very subtle. So, but it'll be felt incredibly deeply. So, lunar eclipses, for people who really don't know much about them, they emphasize more emotional themes. So, these periods are suitable for taking care of one's emotions, completing unfinished projects, and leaving unnecessary things behind, right? So, the ancient astrologers believed that lunar eclipses were malefic as they awakened irrational responses. So the moon's obviously connected to family, the mother, the home, emotional issues. So lunar eclipses can trigger inner changes, like I said before, compared to solar ones. They can also bring insecurity in our own private lives. So I would recommend it's good to avoid making important decisions at this time, as maintaining emotional balance can be difficult. So When something is eclipsed, it's bringing something out of the shadows into conscious light in order to be released, especially at full moons, right? Because full moons are about releasing and letting go. So this eclipse is extremely watery because it is at a Cancerian degree as well, the 4 degrees. So it's going to be very, very emotional. And I think, if we've been emotionally avoidant, then, or things that we've been bearing, then things we have been bearing in order to cope and plod along, it's going to get revealed to us at this time. So if we've been managing an issue in order to keep a situation sustainable, but it does not kind of reflect who we are within our own hearts, then revelations will be made at this time in order to support what's in our heart. And the eclipses, particularly a Piscean eclipse, is going to reveal things on an extremely subtle level, but it's going to have some kick to it as well, because we do have a Uranian T-square to this eclipse as well. And so 4 degrees, like I said, is a Cancerian degree, which adds a deeper layer. But interestingly, this eclipse is also connected to one of the fixed stars, for Malhort. And this star, the stars are really interesting. Fixed stars, that's what really astrology was all about, because it's study of the stars, right? But this star is connected to this, they call this the star, is called the Watcher of the South. So it's connected to power, but not always of this world. And so when we're dealing with Pisces and we're dealing with the planet, well, it's got two rulers, traditionally Jupiter, and a more modern day ruler, Neptune, but its power was really to tap into the unseen realm, or the intangible realm that is clearly there, right? It's Neptune rules chi, and chi's literal translation is air. It connects to gas and things like this, right? But it's that kind of power that you be able to tune in, psychically tune in to things. So this eclipse is going to really dial in our sensitivity. And so it's interesting, it's connected to this star. And this star is quite a fortunate star, actually, and is deeply connected to spirituality. So this star gives us the courage to act from deeper truths. And I think that's really important. And I think people will tap into their own spirit or spirituality at this time. Or if we've been neglecting it, then, or maybe we're more of a atheist on those kind of levels, then maybe something will get revealed to us that will open up something to us, to these kind of realms of consciousness that we've never been privy to understand within ourselves before. So this and it's interesting what's going on at in the world at the moment, because the first decan of Pisces from from the old mundane astrology books, because this eclipse falls into the first decan of Pisces. And for people who don't understand what decans are, traditionally all the houses are divided into thirds. So that it goes from 0 to 10 degrees, 10 degrees to uh, 20, and then 20 to 30. And there's the first, second, and third decans. And so the from the old mundane astrological books, they would say that this decan this eclipse falls into brings sorrow to the priests and religious houses, right? Pisces rules religion, faith, surrendering and sacrificing something greater to the whole. It's a very sacrificial sign. It is connected obviously to people who tuned into astrotheology, right? Because the first this is why Christians have the symbol of the fish. The fish represents an age of Pisces, and that's connected to what they call the precession of the equinoxes that spans for 2,160 years. It's a cycle, right? That's a subject for another time, but this is why we've been under the rule of Pisces for so long. And we can see that in religious symbolism clearly. Vesica Pisces, the symbol of the fish, Jesus, the symbol of the fish, all this kind of stuff, right? Connecting to astrotheology. But when we're talking about this deacon it falls into and what the mundane astrologers are talking about, well, it's no surprise, right, that in the media there have been scandals going on for decades, but are clearly getting more and more exposure in the media related to sex scandals, priests, and corruption within the Vatican. And, the Catholic Church lawsuits have become one of the largest lawsuits in the US in history. So, and I think a lot of this is to do with, in connection to, which is a little bit off topic, but the planet Pluto, because planet Pluto is very good at exposing the cockroaches. But yeah, this is what's going on. And it's interestingly, on another level, when we look at eclipses or we look at signs, we always look at the reflex zone. This is one thing we always look at in medical astrology. So we look at the opposing signs, right? And we can see this, probably the number one creature in the media at the moment getting exposed is Anthony Fauci. So, and this is due to the Piscean Virgo axis by reflex zone, because Virgo rules public health and strong emotions from the pandemic and what obviously people went through are wanting justice, right, around this. So it's without digressing too deeply into him, but this is what's been going on. And just on a note from his Chinese astrology, he's ruled by Mercury, right? That's the lord of his chart. He's got a Virgo rising. And no surprise when you do some digging into his chart that his Mercury is square Neptune. So basically he's just could be a born pathological liar, but that's a whole... I'm not saying everyone who's got that aspect is like that, but I mean, judging from his track record, that is the case. But from a Chinese astrological point of view, I just remember he's born on the yin metal ox day, and yin metal combines with the yang fire stem this year, which represents his power element, which means that you can get an elevation in public status, but you can also get exposed within the public. So I just throw that in there because the Piscean Virgo axis, Virgo rules public health, and public health issues can come out into the light, right? And they have been, and they will more. They will so a lot more over the next 3 to 6 months because of this. And we can also see that from what's going on in media, because we've got to remember too, Pisces, which is connected to planet Neptune, rules media, right? So the Uranus T squared of this eclipse will most likely put a very unusual and bizarre spin, particularly around the health issue stories. But I think we're going to hear a lot of bizarre things. I mean, we already do. I mean, but I think it could just get taken to the next level. So Pisces does rule the media, so I would say expect bizarre stories and twists in the propaganda narrative that's really going on around this. But it's good that things are getting exposed. And I think the evil corruption, particularly within the medical industry that's really run by the Brotherhood of the Snake, that these kind of things are really coming to light. And I think people have really, really had enough. And I think it's a really important time for people to really take responsibility for their health and really pay attention to alternatives. If you can call them alternatives, I'm a Chinese medical practitioner. That's not alternative to me. It's been around a long time. So anyway, it's a interesting time, and I think it's going to be an emotional eclipse around these kind of issues. I think it's really important because there's been so much injustice around this that it's become the next level. But getting back to this eclipse and the physical body, because I always like looking at things medically because I'm a practitioner of Chinese medicine, and I think it's valuable for people to know these kind of things because ultimately our body is our vehicle and our body is rooted in nature, and we need to be able to get our vehicles as clean as possible to be able to connect with source as well. And Pisces is all about that, right? Connecting to something greater than ourselves. So eclipses can have a strong effect on the physical body as well as emotional, mental, and spiritual. So if you have a predisposing medical condition under the rule of Pisces, then there can be potential triggers under this eclipse. So the effects of a lunar eclipse are not as strong as a solar. However, caution is still kind of indicated, right? Because it's going to affect more the emotional and mental bodies. And when the mental body gets affected, it's really from an unsanitized psyche due to what Wilhelm Reich would call the emotional plague, is we don't understand how to process our emotions properly. Because when we become clear on that level, our mind becomes crystal clear. So externally, Pisces rules the feet and the toes. Internally, it rules the glandular system, mucus of the mucus, phlegm in the lungs, the lymphatic system, and the synovial fluids. And like I was saying before, by reflex action to its opposite sign, Virgo will affect the abdomen and the abdominal cavity because Virgo rules that. So Pisces, in its negative sense, rules escapism, nymphomania, addictions, alcoholism, imprisonment, hospitals, and asylums. 12th house stuff, right? The kind of parts of the world no one really wants to know too much about. So we sweep it under the rug and put it into the 12th house, which goes into the collective unconscious. And it's what they call the house of secret enemies. But our only secret enemies, right, are more just our own unconscious, right? Things that haven't become conscious haunt us. So I did a whole cell salt series on my channel here in connection to cell salt astrology. And of course, Pisces is ruled by ferrum phosphate. So be wise if you're low or potentially low levels of this to take high doses of this under this eclipse if you're more prone to iron deficiency. Of course, see a practitioner to get, things right because cell salts aren't as straightforward as that, but they're a good guide just like that. Because there can be other reasons why the facilitation of iron is not getting absorbed. But so I was just going to say, I was talked about the shadow, and Pisces, like I said, has an affliction with secret enemies, and like I said, connects to the 12th house. And I think what happens, like if that is the case for some people, because this can be quite a heavy eclipse for some, things can get revealed to us that when we talk about secret enemies and the conscious and what the unconscious becomes conscious, then it's in order for us to reveal and heal our own shadows. So anyone on psychiatric medication should exercise caution under this eclipse, as Pisces eclipses are highly stimulating to the subconscious mind. So people who suffer depressive disorders may notice an increase pressure under this eclipse wave. So just be mindful of this. and get treatment, right? There's so many cool treatments you can have in regards to this in alternative ways. So for those, particularly for those who haven't looked at other options. So drowsiness and an increased need for sleep is more noticeable as Pisces rules sleep, right? Pisces tends to have a weakening effect, a drawing energy away from the body into the psyche. The immune system can get depleted during this time, especially those suffering autoimmune conditions or have things like chronic fatigue, things like this, right? So be mindful of this. I would avoid operating, especially around the eclipse waves, which we're already in. So if it's emergency, you have no choice, but elective surgery, you always need to keep tabs on. So avoid operating procedures, obviously, around feet and the lymphatic system. And I would avoid blood transfusions as there's high chance of contamination, potentially. So Pisces is an extremely watery, leaking, and bleeding sign, and these are the enhanced effects of this really can really take place at this time. And like I said, the subconscious mind is more vulnerable at this time to influence. So make sure you don't come under psychic hypnosis or enter trance states. So if people are really getting affected by propaganda and the noise on the media, I highly recommend don't even turn that on, especially if you're sensitive to what's going on in the world. Replace it with positive things. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of the old school Napoleon Hill stuff, which I think that kind of stuff, or whatever it is, make sure you're feeding yourself a good diet of positivity as a prone, because the um, the creatures that run this show are very good at using propaganda and media to make sure you stay in a state of anxiety. So, and there's a saying, and I remember one of my great teachers who brought my attention to I think it was a therapist called Vernon Howard. He said, the man who doesn't understand what it means to be under psychic hypnosis is already under it. And Piscean times can be like this. So make sure whatever you're listening to, you make sure it's only for in empowering you, not disempowering you. So at this time too, in these kind of instances, medically, then essences and homeopathy will vibrate strongly with the Pisces frequency. And I encourage this medicine to help cope with the effects of this eclipse if you're feeling really unbalanced. And flower essences can be amazing like this, and I use them a lot clinically, especially I'm in Australia, so I use the Australian bushflower ones by Ian White because they tend to vibrate better with the frequency here. But incredible medicine and can be really good when we're feeling extremely sensitive and vibrating at certain frequencies. The water medicine is incredible. Same with homeopathy. Now, this eclipse falls into the first decan of Pisces, like I said, which connects to the Eight of Pisces in the Eight of Cups in the Tarot, right? So the Tarot plays into the decans as well. And I think what's really cool about this card connects to the frequency of the planet Saturn. So Saturn in Pisces. And I think this is really cool because, in my opinion, we can get really lost in the feeling of Pisces. But in connection to the planet Saturn, it's going to make us, whatever we're feeling, we'll be able to pull it into reality and ground it and not get so consumed by it. So, for those who know tarot, this card is connected to the end of a stage, abandonment of plans, change of course, moving away or seeking deeper emotional satisfaction and not settling for less. This card can indicate when we tire of old familiar patterns and no longer tolerate endless promises. And I think that ties into a full moon, right? All about releasing and letting go of something old, familiar. Some old familiar emotional pattern that may surface during this time that's long overdue to be released and let go. So the Saturn signature to this under this eclipse teaches us to be grounded in our faith, right? Because Pisces is about that. Whether you're religious or not, if you're not, then having faith in yourself, having faith in your own self-esteem to be able to move through and pull through some difficult and heavy situation you've got going on in life. So Pisces energies, like I said, have a strong tendency to escape. So under this eclipse, feelings that are aroused will be strong, and the planet Saturn, like I said before, is going to really support us and help us not evade these feelings under this eclipse. And I'll go through the 12 rising signs now in regards to this eclipse, and we'll start with Aries rising. So you guys will be having this lunar eclipse in the 12th house. So this will be deep and possibly an emotional time, as this eclipse can bring up hidden patterns within our subconscious minds. So this is the house of self-undoing. So make sure you remain stable at this time, as a square from the planet Uranus from the 3rd house can make you overthink complexes, and things can come up really suddenly or erratically with this T-square from you guys from that 3rd house, because the 3rd house is the house of Gemini and is the house of the mind. But we have the Sun in opposition to your 6th house. Sorry, to the 12th house, and Mercury is quite close to that at the moment. So this indicates your mind can be on work, and is important to get into your body and process your thoughts at this time. And I think retreats will be beneficial if you feel out of balance, particularly mentally. Because I think a lot of things will get stimulated mentally for you guys, which is going to trigger some deep unconscious responses within your psyches. So things like meditation, Tai Chi, Qi Gong will greatly benefit you at this time. And as well as doing your own psychological homework. But we've got to remember, psychological homework is martial arts, right? Because the body is the shadow. So that's one thing people can work with. Taurus rising will be having this eclipse in the 11th house. This eclipse will have strong effects, as the 11th house rules social events, friendships, and wish fulfillment. Imaginative works, as well as charity, volunteering, group, collective work, social contribution, and idealistic projects. But it's an excellent time for you guys to get involved in groups or help other people who need assistance. The South Node in opposition to this eclipse can indicate be careful. If you have children, just be careful not to neglect them under this cycle. I would be cautious if you're into gambling and risk-taking at this moment, particularly with that South Node there. But it's a good time to exercise social and mental boundaries when it comes to friends and social networks. So with Piscean energies, you can be really sensitive to groups and what's going on in the groups on an unconscious level. And remember, Pisces dissolves things, so we can absorb a lot of what's going on more of an unconscious level. And when it's strong watery themes, right, we absorb things through osmosis, which can affect our chi and our prana. So just be careful. Just make sure you exercise healthy boundaries when it comes to socializing. But the planet Jupiter, which rules Pisces, is in your 4th house and can indicate building a social community actually close to where you live. Gemini rising will be having this lunar eclipse in the 10th house. The house of career, vocation can come into question at this time. And especially with a lunar eclipse in Pisces, the moon in Pisces, as there can be confusions or fluctuations around career direction. But spiritual vocations can be called for, or a vocation decision to become more spiritual at this time, right? Or you might want to be perceived as doing some form of spiritual work out in the world. But the square from Uranus from your first house can bring emotional instability in regards to how you see yourself in terms of your career and how you're viewed in the public eye, and particularly Uranus in the first is something dramatically you want to change about yourself or how you appear to the world. But I'd say this is a time for you guys to be flexible um, when it comes to your work. And the planet Jupiter, which rules this eclipse, is currently transiting your third house, which may expand your mind and give you many downloads and ideas that you can channel through into your career and can give you some kind of creative inspiration. Cancer rising will be having this lunar eclipse in the ninth house. So the moon rules you guys, so this is important, and this eclipse may stimulate you to want to travel to foreign lands or take a spiritual pilgrimage. There can be a choice to be made when it comes to you and your own spiritual philosophy. When it comes to long distance travel, you may make oceanic voyages, reflective, obviously, Piscean. You want to be close to the water, or go to a foreign country around water. A foreign land may feel more like home wherever you travel to at this time. This eclipse can play on the mind, as the ninth house is the house of the mental body as well, the higher mental plane. And it's interesting that a moon sometimes in the ninth house, we may it can give a strong recall of things, right? So the moon in the third and the ninth house actually can give you a strong memory. So whatever it is you're studying, because this house can be one of the house of higher education, you can actually really absorb and learn a lot. So it's interesting. And I'd say, like I said before, in a couple of the other signs, is you absorb things through osmosis. It's not such a memory recall thing. It can be in intuitive feeling and downloads as well. So the planet Mercury in opposition in the third house to this eclipse can stimulate the mind as well, because we've got the Mercury opposition going on as well as the Sun placement there. But the square from the planet Uranus from the 12th house can disturb your sleeping patterns, right? Because when Uranus hits the 12th, we can have erratic sleep and potentially can arouse some unconscious anxiety and also shifts in your worldview as well. So expect changes within your mind and your thinking patterns at this time. We have Leo rising. We'll be having this lunar eclipse in the 8th. Now, and this can be a really vulnerable time, particularly with the Piscean eclipse in the 8th house, right? The house of psychological shedding, a releasing and letting go of latent subconscious fears, right, can emerge, especially around commitment and intimacy, as this can be a testing time for boundary issues to do with your relationships. So emotional attachments to debt and your finance can surface at this time as well, because this is the house of debt. Taxes, wills, these kind of things. There can be potential confusion around loans and joint finances with others. But eclipses reveal things that are hidden, so make sure you're clear when it comes to loan and investing money. So, but the square to Uranus can shift your finances through trusted allies as well. And you've got Jupiter transiting the first house at the moment, so there's going to be emphasis on you and yourself and actually what you want to present to the world in a very optimistic and positive way. But I think on those lines is there's an important thing for that to really come into fruition. Then there's a point within your own consciousness and your psyche that really needs to let go of issues that are holding you back, like I said before, in terms of intimacy and vulnerability with around commitment. And it's going to be really surfaced at this time and unraveled in a subtle way. Virgo rising is going to be having this lunar eclipse in the 7th. So you may experience your partner emotional at this time, or your partner may bring a positive and strengthening energy that is supportive to you at this time. The astral current, or the emotional energies, are very sensitive at this time between you and your partner or significant other. So you may experience a mystical experience between you and your significant other. There is a potential partner at this time, if single, that will give you a lot of emotional satisfaction, or can be quite a deep, mystical type of person, a musician, a poet, a healer, or a very soft, sensitive type person, compassionate, all those kind of qualities of Pisces. But there can also be a completion of a relationship at this time if you have been idealistic to the point where sometimes we can really idolize our partners to the point where we don't look at them as in something real. We put them on a bit of a pedestal, which Neptune and Pisces can do. So if we have been doing that around this eclipse, in this completion of a cycle, the full moon releasing and letting go, it could be those idealistic tendencies we project on them may actually dissolve and form into something real and bring it into, we see the actual person for who they are, which is a good thing. And that's reflected in the Saturn in Pisces in connection to the tarot card. This is Saturnian signature, right? So we actually see things as they really are. So with the sun in opposition to your first house, it can be a time of understanding yourself through others as well. And the square to Uranus in the 10th house can bring change publicly in your relationship status or professional status. So your vitality might be a little bit low at this time, so avoid crowds and loud noises, particularly with the South Node will be in the first house, so it can be quite a draining time. But Jupiter in your 12th house, which is connected to the moon, can indicate releasing a karmic relationship at this time as well. Libra rising will be having this lunar eclipse in the 6th house, which brings awareness to your health, employment, animals, and service towards others. The South Node, I'll mention, and the Sun in the 12th house can interrupt sleep patterns and present psychological changes in the opposite end of the spectrum from the 6th. But I would say in this case, past life memories can be easily accessed, and you may feel more psychically and emotionally sensitive under this eclipse. And because we've got the connection to health and from the 6th house, medically, issues with feet, immune system, glandular and lymphatic health, and the quality of your blood can arise potentially at this time if you're unhealthy. The square to Uranus in the 9th house can stimulate you to travel or perhaps educate yourself in an unconventional way. And the planet Jupiter, which rules this eclipse, will be in your 11th house, indicating an expansion within your social circles. But I think this eclipse for you guys overall will bring balance into your body, mind, and spirit in the connection to the 12th and the 6th houses. Scorpio rising will be having this lunar eclipse in the 5th house. A pretty happy house, actually. The full moon is about creative expansion, romance, joy, opening of the heart, children, pregnancies. That can be unplanned pregnancies as well, so watch out for that. Falling in love or potential loss of love. But interestingly enough, you guys are ruled by Mars. Mars is the lord of your chart, and it's trine this eclipse in your 9th house, indicating a vacation could be on the cards, right? To the seas or lakes or rivers or around the ocean. for those wanting to escape. The connection to Jupiter in the 10th house can suggest that you are releasing a creative project of some kind professionally, which can lead to a breakthrough actually in your career. You may also make a relationship public, as in a more official, as opposed to just dating, right? Because having Jupiter in the 10th house is about making your relationship status public. Can do. But the square to the planet Uranus in the 8th can lead to challenges and changes in your financial circumstances, as well as your psychological ones as well. Sagittarius will be having the eclipse, lunar eclipse in the 4th house. The planet Jupiter is the lord of your chart and rules this eclipse. So home, family, emotional roots are coming into focus. Family secrets can be revealed at this time. Things that are hidden around the home will come to focus, and particularly on a building biology level, actually. Well, what I mean by that is things like dampness, mold, and decay may present themselves that haven't been there before. So watch out for that, because mold and things like that's extremely toxic. So some maintenance may be required. This eclipse is square the planet Uranus in your 7th house, indicating changes and balances are required between relationships, career, and the home front. The planet Jupiter, which rules Pisces, is in the 9th house, which may suggest you may want to move further away from home, or there are legal ties to do with a home at this time. Potentially, you could home could be potentially a foreign land, right? With Jupiter in the 9th, and releasing and letting go of things in this eclipse, releasing and letting go of things to do with in relation to the home is the key to this eclipse. And that can be ancestral family issues, family patterns that need releasing, as well as maybe potentially a physical home as well. Capricorn rising will be having this lunar eclipse in the 3rd house. So this eclipse will stimulate the area of your life to do with self-education, communication, short journeys, siblings, and neighbors. Words become important. Poetry comes to mind, actually, as Pisces rules this. Pisces rules poetry, so there's a sensitivity to words that can come into play at this time for you guys around this eclipse. Or you might get more moved by poetry or reading lyrics to songs and things like this may really stir up some deep emotional content within yourself. So your mental state will be affected, and the mind can become more mystical in nature at this time, right? Because sometimes Capricorn risings can be kind of quite pessimistic or just reality. And what you see is what you get. Show me the facts and data and things like this. But with the Piscean eclipse or the Piscean moving through that 3rd house can maybe, most likely will stimulate you. You may become more sensitive to other subjects that are, like I was saying before, say poetry or more mystical type subjects as well, as in esoteric healing or something like this, right? These kind of things come up. But you'll be more sensitive at this time. And Jupiter is currently transiting your 8th house, so something will be revealed to you around tax, debts, taxes, wills, and joint resources. Or if there's been a legal issue going on, possibly something legal could be playing out for you on that level, or possibly getting resolved. But the square to the planet Uranus in the 6th house can indicate sudden changes in your work schedule. And usually when Uranus transits that house, you won't be able to stand the 9 to 5 grind. So there could be challenges around that. And possibly changes to your health, as Uranus, when it transits the 6th. I have particularly noticed people tend to get more allergies, or can get potential allergies such as hay fever. So just be mindful of all that. Aquarius rising will be having this lunar eclipse in the 2nd house. the financial house where there will be windfalls and ups and downs or potentials with finances, especially as the planet Uranus is squaring the second house from the fifth, which can indicate actually a financial risk or reward could pay off as a reward at this time. So I'd say don't be afraid to take risk, but then again, with Neptune, a moon in an eclipse in the second house can reveal something that is potentially hidden. So just be careful. Make sure when it comes to your investments, you're receiving good financial advice. And if you're still not sitting comfortably with that, then really dial into your intuition to make sure you're 100% sure before you make a decision. And self-worth issues, because this is a house of self-esteem, can reveal themselves under this lunar eclipse and make you more sensitive to yourself at this time. So be really mindful of that. And so the mirror will be reflected back actually through partnerships with the sun in opposition to the eighth house. And so partnerships can reflect your sense of worth at this time, but Jupiter in the eighth can also indicate a generous partners coming into your life, which will help reflect your self-esteem as well. Pisces rising will be having this lunar eclipse in the first house. This eclipse is it's on the home ground for you, the first house, right? Piscean ascendant. And particularly if you've got an ascendant in the earlier degrees, this is going to really affect you, right? So there can be an increase in your chi force at this time, and you can appear quite magnetic to others as well. So this can enhance the Pisces quality of sweetness and grace, and also angelic as well. A lot of people I've noticed over the years who have a Piscean ascendant, some of them really do look angelic. That's an interesting thing I've observed over that. There's a grace and a sensitivity to them. The first house is about you and the image you present to the world. So you could gracefully change your image and potentially dissolve a mask, because remember Pisces dissolves. Dissolve a mask that you've been appearing to the world, right? The mask you're being wearing to the world or presenting yourself to the world with is potentially going to dissolve at this time to become more authentically you. That's what I'm trying to say. Hope that made sense. Jupiter, the Lord of your chart, is currently transiting your sixth house, indicating opportunities for employment and changes in your life purpose when it comes to work. Because remember, Jupiter rules your chart, so wherever Jupiter travels, it's important for you. So Jupiter's also actually trying your planet Saturn from your second house, which can indicate a strengthening of resources at this time. It's in a harmonious aspect there. That's positive. But the square from the fourth house, which the planet Uranus shows big changes on the home front for you guys. So just watch for getting too emotional about these changes. If anything is really changing a lot and rattling your foundation at this time, because Uranus going through the fourth. Remember, the fourth house is the one of the psychological houses, so it can really rattle our foundation because it really is our roots. So just make sure you stay grounded, walk in nature, be around animals, and really recharge your bio batteries at this time. So this is my take on the Piscean lunar eclipse coming up. I'll have plenty of other talks in the pipeline coming, like I mentioned in the beginning, and we will be in touch soon. So thank you so much for listening.